Welcome back to another episode of Naja News. I am your host, Naja Hall, and we're sitting here once again with our investigative journalist, Steph Watts. Good morning, Steph. We got a busy day today.
Hi, Naja. Hey, how's it going?
Listen.
Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Well, is it
happy?
Yeah.
Today we're covering three top stories. As you all know, you see what's happening in the news. We see that ICE agents may or may not have shot intentionally a woman in Minnesota. The next story that we're covering is the missing woman in Chicago. Some people seem to think there's foul play. Steph is going to give us a bunch of updates and his opinions on that. And finally, we're going back over to Chicago and the story that we've been following since September 8th, the story of the 31-year-old mother that was gunned down, Romika Meeks Blackman. Her killer is facing indictment, arraignment, and the hearing is happening today. So we're going to give you some up-to-the-minute updates on what's happening with that story. So first off, we're heading over to South Minneapolis. A woman is shot during an ICE enforcement operation. Now, right now, the protesters are out there. We're getting more and more details on who this woman was. Was she an illegal, as some like to say? Was she a U.S. citizen? And did she deserve what happened to her? Steph, here's what we know so far. The situation is breaking. She was shot during, as I said, the enforcement operation. The federal agents are involved. They're asking the local residents to back up and avoid the area. Obviously, there's protests because we all watched the unfortunate incident. As a matter of fact, we're going to play it here first. Steph, what are your thoughts on the breakdown and what's happening, the clash between the citizens and Homeland Security?
Well, let's back up a little bit. Let me put things into context for everybody.
Let's back it on up.
There's a lot of things going on. January 6th, 5 years ago, we saw the biggest domestic terrorism act in this city on the insurrection. Okay, we just acknowledged the 5th year anniversary of January 7th. Okay, at 9:30 a.m., police shot and killed an unarmed white woman in Minnesota. Let me repeat myself, because this is a historic moment in the United States. On January 7th at 9:30 a.m., police shot and killed an unarmed white woman. So this is where we're at in America. And I know that the black community, black culture doesn't celebrate this, but I know they understand what's happening. Okay, now you asked me the question, was she? Yes, she was an American citizen. She was born in Colorado. She was a mother. She recently lost her husband, from what I understand, and they had a child, and she was in a new relationship now, a same-sex relationship with a woman who was, I believe, was actually in the car. Now, there's a lot of terminology being thrown out. This woman is what we call an observer. Okay. Now, the Trump and the MAGA like to call people agitators. We have a new term that's kind of come out that, I was strictly an observer. It's similar to a witness.
Not an agitator.
She was a witness and an observer. So we know that her car was parked. Her car there, again, we don't have all the details, but there was tons of video.
And so apparently there was 3 vehicles, right? Hers just happened to be one of them.
Right. Well, you know what? We can look at the videos. I just want to focus on her.
Yeah.
Is that her car was? It didn't appear she was being agitating to the people. It appeared you see her wave them by. Okay. Then she goes to pull out. She drives in the direction of the ICE officer that shot her, but it wasn't aggressive. To me, it looked like she was trying to leave. Maybe they said to her, hey, don't leave. I don't know. But I have a photograph of a bullet that is straight through the front window into her head. She was shot execution style. And I took a lot of flack for that statement yesterday when they said, you don't have all the facts. I'm like, I don't need the facts. I know what an execution style murder looks like. I've been doing this for 20 years, 25 plus years. She was shot through the window into the face. Then, and you can hear it on the tape, neighbors concerned are like, I'm a doctor, let me help her. And the ICE agents are like, no, we're not going to allow you. They didn't help her. The ICE agents weren't helping her because they knew the condition of her face. They knew how badly disfigured it was, and they didn't want anybody to see. We are witnessing the murdering of American citizens by ICE agents.
A white, unarmed female American citizen. And you mentioned something earlier. You said, okay, well, black people, like, obviously we're concerned, but this is what we've been screaming for over 400 years
Right,
now.
and what I meant...
So now it's like, hey guys, so you see, nobody's immune. Is this a color issue, or is it a class, or is it a socioeconomic issue?
It's not, and I don't want to make it a color issue.
It's absolutely not.
All
But
I
now
was
we're
saying,
starting to see...
let me finish.
No, let me finish. Let me finish, because I'm actually agreeing with you.
I know.
So it's not a color issue, but I think what white people, white Americans, white global citizens see, especially those that are observing what's happening here in America, can see that, wait a minute, are we so different? Because this is a class issue. It's about control. It's not about color. Color has just been something that's a really good divisive measure. Now you can finish.
I can't remember what I was going to say.
So one thing that the Homeland Security has said is, in Homeland Security, so they're ICE's bosses, the woman was attempting to evade law enforcement in her vehicle. She allegedly drove her vehicle toward an ICE officer. So they're using this to justify shooting when they could have moved out of the way, Steph. Mm-hmm. You watched the video just like I did.
Look, the situation is, what were they doing there? You know, they shouldn't have been in the neighborhood in the first place. They shouldn't have been in Minnesota. Minnesota's made it the governor, the mayor's made it very clear, we don't want you here. Again, this is Trump and his people trying to agitate us as citizens and, you know, create chaos. This is where we're at in this country. Okay, this is what they want. Division, chaos, control. They've already created the division, check, successful. Mm-hmm. Chaos, we're in the midst of it. What comes next is control, which is martial law, you know, in every state across. That's what they're going for. And we're well on the way by what happened in Minnesota yesterday. It's a disgrace. It's disgusting. It's shameful. It's terrible. This woman was a poet. She was a writer. She was a mother. She was an American citizen. She had just moved to Minnesota, and she was there strictly out of concern for neighbors that she knew were migrants, that she knew was being targeted by ICE.
Is that why she was there?
Yeah, she was there. They had migrant neighbors that they were concerned about. That's why ICE was there. But, like, you know, these people aren't in her neighborhood weren't gangbangers and drug dealers and murderers.
They may as well be, because she was shot like one.
Right. Well,
so how different are we? Yeah. So she was driving one of 3 vehicles that was involved in the crash. We know that she crashed the car into a light pole. And
she was dead.
Yeah, because she had a bullet in her body. The car immediately veered over and hit the light pole. So she actually probably didn't do that.
Right. And let me stop you right there.
Yeah.
Just want to add something about that. Mm-hmm. Now, if they wanted to stop the car, you can shoot at the tires, okay? You don't shoot somebody in the face. That is the worst part. You know, I'm a gun advocate. I grew up in a gun culture. You know, if I need to maim somebody, I'm going to shoot them in the foot, the leg, the knee.
You said it, Steph. You said execution style.
He shot her in the face.
You called it. This was an execution, because this also shows a level of experience of the people that are being deployed as ICE agents.
Well,
because if you are an experienced gun holder and you're not gung-ho to enforce big orange man's law, no shade to anybody that loves orange. I'm wearing it today. But would you not?
That's why you're agitated.
And I did not do this on purpose.
Right, that's why I'm agitated.
But would you not first?
Orange.
If you're an experienced shooter, how do I want to stop a person that's running away in a car?
No, you raise a good point. And I talked to my many of my law enforcement friends, and Naja, in that moment, okay, it takes intense training to know what to do and what not to do. And what not to do is what we witnessed. That's not what you do.
Can you talk about the intense training, though? Because are we looking at experienced people, or are we looking at some J6ers that are...
Let's call these guys what they are. These are the Proud Boys, that they've moved into positions of authority. Now they're now ICE agents. These are Proud Boys, and you know what the Proud Boys were like. They were running around, doing whatever they were, racially profiling people. Now they've been given badges and guns. Oof. and free reign. So we should all be incredibly, incredibly nervous. Seeing Renee murdered, executed by ICE, to me, is a turning point in America. It's a January 7th, 2026 at 9:30 a.m. is a turning point in America. And I don't mean to diminish what happened to Rodney King or Trayvon Martin or anybody else that was shot and murdered of color. But what I'm saying is
when innocent white women die, it's more important and it's a different story. And maybe we'll wake up. I don't know if that's what you're saying, but
no, that's not what I'm saying.
Oh, okay, my bad.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it's like we're all in this together now. Like, we're all in, we have to realize that nobody is, I'm not going to walk down the street and say, they're not going to shoot me, they're not going to come for me because I'm white. That's off the table now. That's off the table. As of yesterday at 9:30 in the morning, that's off the table.
So the cloak of comfort is coming off of people that otherwise felt a sense of safety and protection because I am not them. I'm not the blacks. I'm not the browns. I'm not the illegal immigrants or the immigrants. I have this cloak of protection on me, but now we're seeing that you might not have it. And how safe do you feel? We have people posing as ICE agents that are legally stopping and frisking average citizens. Like, this is what's happening right now. We're seeing reports of that.
Yeah.
So there's going to have to be some sort of regulations. The gap of the trust was never there between the citizens and ICE because of how they were introduced to us. Like, we saw them yanking people out of their cars and homes.
Right.
And
like savages.
And sending people to concentration camps to ship them off to lands that they've never been, languages that they don't even speak. So now the gap is even widening, but I do think it's intentional. I think.
Well, it is if you look at the salary base. I mean, they're offering huge bonuses to join ICE. They're offering incredible, like crazy salaries. And the other thing that I want to jump back to what was in that car. She was in the car with her wife. Okay, they were in a same-sex relationship. And I heard the wife say, "That's my wife." I don't know what preceded that gunshot, that shooting in the face, but I'd like to know if there was conversations about them being wives, if there was some homophobia, some involved in that, because these, right, they're going after everybody, all marginalized groups. So they could have been like, these effing fuck you, right? You know what I mean? I mean, I don't know.
We don't know.
But it's something that I would want to know as
But
a
that's
journalist.
not a far out notion to see, oh, we got these two. Because anybody that's different from probably WASPs, the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, if you're anything outside of that, then perhaps you are a target. I think even deeper, though, it's not just, because now we've seen it on territory where it's not gone before. Because in many cases, many historical books, the white woman is the delicate flower. She's the untouchable. She's the goddess. She's the maternal, matronly being. She's the deity, right? That's how it's been positioned. But when she gets a bullet put through her head in broad daylight, even she, the eternal, delicate goddess, the flower, is not safe. So then who is safe? How about that? Who is safe?
I don't think anybody's safe anymore. The saddest part for me is when you look back at that video over and over again, which I've done and you've done and everybody's done, because there's so many different angles, which is really problematic for ICE. But to hear that doctor's voice and say, "I'm a doctor, I can help," and them refusing her and knowing she's 25 feet away dying alone in that car, and if that doctor had have got to her, could things have been different? I believe so. So there's a lot to this story. There's a lot of layers to it. There's a lot of anger and passion. And the sad part is, this is just the beginning. And I need people to understand that. We are coming into, this is the plan. Know what the plan is. Division, chaos, control. We are now entering into chaos. Look at 2026. We're what, 9 days in?
We're just a couple
we started
days
a war
in.
with Venezuela. We're 5-year anniversary of the insurrection. We're
riot.
threatening war in other countries. We've got ICE murdering white people now. I mean, it's not even the second week of January.
One thing about it is, I remember being a kid and when we were learning about the Holocaust, and I would see photos of Hitler doing his thing, and I would see legions of lemmings, men in this uniform, wearing the swastika, marching to do Hitler's bidding. And I'm like, how are these people so dumb? How did Hitler convince these people to take human beings from their homes and put them in ovens?
It's happening right now.
How did one
It's happening
leader,
right now.
dictator, convince these people. So when I look at the ICE agents that put these uniforms on and they've been emboldened and given this fake ass power, I say that's how it was done. It starts little by little. The indoctrinating started with these guys early. There takes a special phenotype of brain probably to become an ICE agent.
Right, and the other problem
Like-
with the Minnesota situation is, New York, where we are, we're a sanctuary city.
Right,
Chicago is a sanctuary city. Minnesota is not, and what that means is the police have to work with ICE. I talk to my friends here
Even if
and
they
in
don't
Chicago.
want to.
Right, they have to cooperate with ICE. So now the Minnesota Police Department unwillingly is under scrutiny. What was their relationship in this? What was their involvement? What was their role? I mean,
Do they want to be there? Because like you said, this is a sanctuary city. So here we know
Minnesota's not a sanctuary. Oh,
yeah, here
New York.
we're
right,
in New York
right.
City.
Yeah.
Here, if we see ICE, we know the cops are different. Like we
Right.
know that because that's what we're taught.
Right.
You see the same thing in Chicago. But
Right.
even if these police officers have opposing views to what's happening with ICE, they're doing the damn jobs.
Right, and now the riots are happening, right, in Minnesota, the protests and the riots, and I would hate to see the Minnesota Police Department be
Wrongfully.
the recipients or the victims of riots when we don't have all the information about what they're involved in. But we know for a fact that this guy was an ICE. There was no discrepancy in that, because you asked the question at the beginning. She was murdered by an ICE agent, by a gunshot through her car window into her face, straight on, and 2 other bullets to the side. Completely unnecessary.
Uncalled for, unnecessary,
Yeah.
and you did
It's a sad day.
the shooter did a poor job. And we know that Minnesota has been under fire anyway. Like we saw what happened last week with the Somalians, with the daycare incident and the propaganda that's gone into that. So it seems like the perfect breeding ground to elicit and make fertile this grooming hatred.
Right.
Because
And
now we have young boys that want to be ICE agents when they grow up, and they're seeing the power and control that they can have. And who is on the opposite side of that? Who do we have on the opposite side to say, hey guys, this has happened historically before, and this leads to the downfall of civilizations, right? How long do you think we have before it all comes crumbling down?
I don't know. I just feel like, watching this, like we don't want Venezuela. We don't want Greenland. You know who does? Putin does. And everyone's like, oh, we're going to get bombed. No, we're not. No, we're not, because they're laughing at us. We're destroying ourselves. We are, as a society, as an American culture, you're watching and witnessing and being a part of the dismantling of America. It is happening right now. And if you don't believe me, if you're in denial, if you think I'm crazy, then you're not awake. I'm sorry.
All right.
It's happening.
Boom. Said it. You heard it here first, folks. Are we ready to move on to the next story? Not that it gets any better, but
Your legs look really shiny today, by the way.
I put on Vaseline before
I'm
we
sitting here
started.
listening to you, staring at
Because
your
I
legs
normally
like,
I'm like ashy, so I put on Vaseline. It's right over there. I got a big tub.
slide right off.
I glop it on and pop it.
And just to make you guys know, when we yell at each other, she's like my little sister from another mister. So don't come at her like you interrupted. It's fine.
Yeah, let's move over to this missing Chicago CPS teacher, Linda Kathleen Brown. Steph has a lot of experiences in cases like this, and we don't know exactly what the
Particularly
details
in
are.
Chicago.
Particularly in Chicago.
Yeah, the Drew Peterson case, that was one of my biggest cases. My reason for telling you that is every case for me is a case study. Yeah. And I'm looking at this guy, I'm looking at the husband, and I'm hearing all the wrong things coming out of his mouth.
Broke down. I don't know what to do. I did everything. I'm talking to people. We got people on it. We got people searching for it. I'm out of options. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do, but just wait. If you watching this, please come home. Your family is missing you. I'm missing you. Your friends are missing you. Linda, we need you to come home, baby. Seriously. Need you to come home.
So before we get into that, let's just talk about a couple of the details.
Yeah, why don't you give everybody an overview?
So right now we know a CPS special education teacher has disappeared. It was routine, normal circumstances. She never came home. The police confirmed that this is an active investigation, but the details are limited, but we're learning a little bit more day by day. And because the details are so limited, Steph, the husband, as you mentioned, is speaking out. the missing woman's family is starting to speak out. So we can only infer what's happening. So who is Linda Kathleen Brown? She's a 53-year-old special education teacher at Robert Healy Elementary School in Chicago. She's been married to Antoine Brown for 11 years. They lived together in a Brownsville townhouse. She'd been on a leave of absence for several months, and she was scheduled to return to work on Monday, right before her disappearance. Now, her family, her own sister, has said that she had suffered from some sort of mental illnesses and she had sought treatment and time away from work. We don't know exactly what mental illness it was. We don't know if it could have been related to her disappearance or how it affected her life. So her husband says the last time he saw her was around midnight on Friday night going into Saturday morning. And this is important because every Saturday morning she would go and get acupuncture. She had a standing appointment. He said she was in bed when I went upstairs. Everything was fine. I don't know when she got up. So at some point between sleep, she got up, left the bed, and he was like, okay, it's just routine. He says that he left the house around 8:30 in the morning to go boxing. She went over to her she was supposed to go over to her standing acupuncture appointment. That's when she did not show up. So she was last seen then. Her phone is still on, according to her husband. I don't know if they're tracing or tracking her whereabouts through the phone. Her family called the police, and now the search continues. Steph, now obviously me and Steph are talking about this story for a reason, because it could be a routine disappearance, or it could be something else. And people, I've seen it all over the place, Steph. People are posting the husbands and scrutinizing and breaking down his reactions. Have you seen a pattern before? Because you and I sat and watched his videos.
Well, a couple of things. I thought that, first of all, he's a prime suspect because he was the last person to be with her.
And the spouse, right? Isn't the spouse always a...
Well, yeah, so he's kind of got a double, right, he's kind of got a double eyeballs, what we would call it. He's the spouse, and he was the last person to see. So, remember, he's in the situation where he controls the narrative, okay? So his story was, I went up to bed, it was around midnight, and this is what struck me as unusual. Everything seemed fine, or everything seemed... That's a strange thing to say. Okay. We didn't say it, like, and then, you're married, you get into bed, you kind of know her. And then he's like, I woke up and she was gone. He's a real heavy sleeper, but like if Tony gets up, don't you kind of like know, like, bye babe or whatever?
Yeah, I'm a
right.
light
Like
sleeper.
It's weird that he's just like, I got up and she was gone. And then I went about my day. So now the sister coming out and saying that she had mental health issues. Mm-hmm. As a non-trusting individual who is an investigative journalist, my first thing I'm going to look at is the relationship between the husband and the sister. Okay, I want to know what's going on. Is there a relationship between them? Do they, because I don't know.
You mean like, do they have like a sister-in-law, brother-in-law relationship?
I'm not insinuating everything. I just want to know, is the relationship cordial? Are they friendly? Are they cooperative? Does she hate him? Are they aligned? Are they not aligned? Because for the sister to come out and saying she had mental health issues, how is that helping? Now, remember, her car was found Monday night. From what I know, from what my sources are, they're not talking about what's in that car, what was found in that car. There's very little information about that car, but obviously that car is key. It was either key that she took that car, she left the home and took that car and it was then somewhere, or somebody took that car with her in it, or we really don't have a lot to go on, and that's why I want to be careful about throwing the husband under the bus. But certainly, I'd be looking at him and all his relationships to the people around her, and find somebody's got to crack. Somebody has to know something. It's a short window of time. This is the most important thing. It's a short window of time, and it's a relatively small area. If we believe his story.
If we believe his story.
Let me just I'm making this up, everybody. Did something happen that night? Okay, was it Friday night? I'm sorry, what night was it?
Going into Saturday morning.
He said, I went up and went to bed. So prior to midnight, and he's using midnight, did something happen between the couple where they got into an altercation, and because you got to look at it, he's got a big window of time to possibly do something if he wants to do something. Okay? I'm not saying I have any evidence, any information,
No.
but I would look at that. Where was the husband? Where was his phone? Was his phone traveling? Was he using his phone? Was his phone tracking in the house? Was her phone tracking in the house? Were any calls made? Does the cell phone usage line up with his story? She went to bed early. He went to bed here. So from 12 till whatever 7, there should be no cell phone activity.
Right.
Then from 7 or whatever time she left to go to acupuncture, she would be up. So there's a lot of things those are the things that I know for a fact that detectives would be looking at.
So, like you said, I want to talk about this car a little bit. So the initial concern from her husband, he says the car was found undamaged. The police have not confirmed this statement, but the husband says her blue Honda Civic was found undamaged. So it's tough to confirm if that
How
was
does
true
he
or
know
not.
it's undamaged?
I don't know, but the police have not confirmed that.
Let me look at everybody. How does he know that the car is not damaged? They would not have told him that. Mm-hmm. They would not have told him that.
And this is a direct quote from the husband. We found the car. CPD towed it. So perhaps he maybe had a look around and somebody called him and said, hey, we found your wife's car, and he showed up on the scene. That could be a plausible scenario, no?
It would be, no, I'm trying, it's a good question. I'm trying to think if they found the car, and this would be a great question for Michelle. They would more than likely, I don't know, because the husband would still be considered a suspect.
Yeah.
I don't think they would call him and bring him to, they would find the car, photograph it, film, and then take the car, and then tell him they would take the car, if I'm not mistaken, I think. So there's no reason for him, unless he was out searching and found the car.
Yeah.
Now, again, there's a lot of, not misinformation, lack of information, but this is an interesting story.
Here's another direct quote from the husband. They don't track each other's phones. So there's not a Find My iPhone. He doesn't know her location. She doesn't know his location. There are also no cameras at the front or the back of their townhome.
Okay.
So we don't have any ring footage to see what time did she leave? When did she leave? Did someone meet her, take her car? Or did she get carjacked? We don't have any footage for that whatsoever. So
is that convenient or is that purposeful?
Well, because of this, there's no confirmed time of when she left the house. And we don't know even what direction she drove in. Did she drive in the direction of her standing acupuncture appointment, or did something else happen? Yeah.
If you're believing that narrative. Right.
It's so early. And one thing that I would hate to do, because this could very well be a grieving husband that we're seeing, or a distraught husband that we're seeing that's looking for his wife. There is not anybody on earth that can tell me right now, unless you've been through that situation, how you're going to react if your spouse goes missing. I can't say what I would do. You can't say what you would do. There's no script that we should follow. So when I see people breaking down every movement of his eyes and how he's acting. Is he a psychopath? Is he a narcissist? People are already doing long TED Talks about this man and his state of being. I personally won't do that, because if there's an unfortunate scenario, if this ends really bad and we find out he had nothing to do with it, I don't want to be one of those people falsely accusing somebody who should have been able to simply grieve.
Ask me what I think.
I know. You're an investigative journalist.
No. Look.
What do you think, Steph?
When I first saw him, the first thing I did is call my best friend, who's a sergeant with Chicago Police Department. And I'm like, She's like, he's guilty. And I said, yeah. And the reason I thought that there was, because I've seen the pattern.
You've seen this before.
I'm being cautious with it. I'm saying this to you because this is a casual environment, and I don't want to throw him under the bus, but like, I certainly hope I'm wrong, and if I'm wrong, then it's a case study in human behavior. But I just saw things, because I sat this far from Drew Peterson himself, who lied to me, and I was waiting for him in his den. It was in a Bolingbrook, and you go in the house and they have that little den.
Remind people who Drew Peterson is.
Drew Peterson is a Bolingbrook police officer who is now in prison for murdering Kathleen Savio, his third wife, and Stacy Peterson from the Bolingbrook, Chicago area is his fourth wife. She's still missing. To this day, we believe that he killed her, but we don't. There's no evidence. There's no body. There's nothing. and this was a really great. He came downstairs. I'll never forget this. And I was sitting waiting for him. This big media store if you look it up. And he comes downstairs and he has a bottle of pills. Sits across from me and he puts a pill bottle down and slides it. And he goes, she was troubled. Look what she was taking. And then he says to me, she was a lot younger than me. He goes, look at me, look at her. Like she ran away. And
did you get this on camera, or you guys are just talking at that?
No, there was no camera at this point. It was
he
just
brought you her pills
to
said,
show me, and slid it.
So he's setting up that this woman's unstable, and
right, which is the sort of the she's troubled, which is what we're hearing from this guy. So I'm just again, it's a case that you know, that was interesting to me because I believed him. In that moment, I'm like, yeah, you know, it was really early on. I'm like, yeah, you know what? He's like 55 something, and she was beautiful in 20, and you know,
they had that. I did not know there was that significant of an age difference.
Yeah, Stacy and Drew, not
because Stacey Peterson. That's the one that drew national attention. Because remind me of the facts of that case.
Stacey Peterson went missing from her Bolingbrook house. I can't remember what year it was.
She's not the one that was pregnant, right?
No, that's Lacey Peterson, Scott Peterson out of California. I worked in that case too. That was a death penalty case.
Okay.
So Drew Peterson is out of Chicago, Bolingbrook police officer, really abused. As we unravel the stories of an abuse of power, but he was a great liar. And you know, oftentimes when women disappear, I've been doing this for 25 years. Oftentimes, it's the husband. Like it's just
probability
but there's
shows.
Times, right? But there's times when it's not, and we're in a culture right now where there's a lot of mental health issues. There's a lot of stuff. So when the sister brought that up, okay, understandable. But then, as a non-trusting investigative reporter who doesn't trust anybody, I'm like, what's the relationship between the sister and the husband? Like, is there something going on with them?
Are they cool? Do they hate each other?
Right.
Did she want her sister away from him? Like,
right.
You know, there's so many
Was he
scenarios.
in love with the sister? I don't know. I'm just making it up.
This is not a Lifetime movie. This is
no, but you've got to ask all these questions.
So I'm
and
curious
then
about
eliminate,
something,
work backwards.
I'm curious about something. So this psychopath sat this close to you, brought you down this woman whose life you found out later that he took. Hey, Steph, he told you this sad story. You said, I believed him. Why did you believe him?
In that moment, because he was incredibly convincing. And he was it was interesting because he was throwing himself under the bus. He was doing that thing like, dude, like, look at me. Like, I'm old and ugly. She's, you know, he's like, he was acting like he was embarrassed. Like, look at me, look at her. Like, come on, what are you doing here? Like, look, she was on meds. She was beautiful. You know, she took her bikini and she took off. Like, okay, you know. Then within 5 minutes, I went next door to the neighbors and I got a completely different story.
Like,
so my window of believing him was about 15 minutes. But
what was the outcome?
Incredibly convincing.
Was it found that he did take her life?
We don't know.
Oh, because she's not been found.
She's never been found. What happened was it opened the immediate attention on Stacey Peterson, opened the window to, wait, his third wife died mysteriously in the bathtub, and it was classified as an accident. And I'm like, wait, something's wrong. We got I got the autopsy report from the family because they're like, nobody's listening to us. We went live. I was working for Fox News at the time. We went on Fox News, myself, Greta Van Susteren, and Dr. Michael Baden, one of the best, you know, renowned pathologists in the country.
We got to get him on. We got to talk to him.
And said it was a murder, and it changed everything. Then the state exhumed her body, and the family came to me and said, we don't trust the states because they made a mistake the first time. And I'm like, great, let me talk to Dr. Michael Baden. Dr. Michael Baden allowed Dr. Michael Baden to do an autopsy, and I was allowed to be in the room. I was in the room when they performed the autopsy, and I filmed it. This is an old story. I'm not. Yeah, I don't want to digress. But my point is, because of that, it opened up Pandora, and then it realized this was a homicide, not an accident. Then we looked at all the paperwork, and it was just a terrible, sloppy police work cover-up. And it turns out that he went to trial, was charged with her murder, went to trial, and is now in jail. So we're seeing the pattern of what happens. So sympathy versus suspicion. You know, we got to call out the elephant in the room. This is a black husband named Antoine and his white wife with mental health issues. There's that.
So then You know, are we harping on
Didn't
the
we
big
just
black guy?
Didn't we just have this conversation about covering black stories? Here
Literally.
we are. But I'm like, and I'm literally like, I really hope this guy is a victim. Like, I really hope he's not the perpetrator.
If he's a
honestly,
victim
in my,
of the
like when I was
media-
laying there thinking about it,
Yeah.
because we were gonna do this, I'm like, please, dude,
Please
like,
don't do that. I hope you didn't kill that white girl.
I hope she wandered off. I hope she's okay.
And she's off.
You know, I hope
Maybe
we
she's in
find
an
her.
ICE detention center.
And I hope,
like, we don't know. Like,
but
I
you can't not make him a suspect because his actions may have led to her demise, and it's not because he's black; it's just because he's the husband, and he was the last person to see her alive.
I learned that not only from you, but from SVU. We always look at the spouse, even if this was a dead man and it was a wife. We always look at the spouse. Olivia
I'm
Benson
nervous
taught me
you're
that.
getting your information from SVU.
Oh, hey,
your
they haven't
investigative skills from SVU, but okay.
So we don't know what time Linda left the house. We know her car has been recovered. We don't know. There's so much that we don't know. Well, this is the first 72 hours.
They would know what time her acupuncture appointment was.
Which she did not make it to.
Right, since it was a regular thing.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the other thing that I wanted to point out to people. Again, when I'm looking at this from an investigative point of view, I know that she had to be somewhere. So say I do something to you. I know my gig is up when Naja doesn't arrive at this appointment.
Mm-hmm.
It's showtime, right? So whatever, if I do something to you, I've got to have everything done
by this time.
And then they're going to be like, oh, she didn't show up. Oh, I don't know. I just woke up. So it, she didn't cancel her appointment,
No.
which, so for if she's mentally ill or she's wandering, that would make sense. And I've heard of this before. I've heard of situations of people taking their clothes off in the wintertime and walking and freezing to death. That's kind of what mental health can do to you.
And we do know that she was on a leave of absence from her job.
Right.
Because of some sort of mental health issue. She had taken a leave of absence from her job, which leads me to believe, did she have some sort of break? And like you said, it's winter, Chicago. Has she wandered off? Are they going to find her somewhere in some sort of facility, hopefully, prayerfully alive? And then some of us are going to owe this man a big fat apology for even suspecting him. I'm not, because I'm just staying neutral about this.
Well, either way, that car is crucial because it's either she drove the car there to where it was. We don't know exactly where that location is, and left the vehicle on her own, or somebody took her and that vehicle there, or somebody took the vehicle there. There's really only three possible scenarios. So either way, that vehicle is key. There could be major evidence. There could be blood evidence in there. We don't know. There could be, so we don't, let's keep on top of this story. It's an interesting story. We don't have a lot going on. I hope for her safe return. We don't have a lot, but it's an interesting story. I'm glad we're jumping on it early.
And you know what? I was when I was getting dressed for this today, and I said, wait a minute, this lady disappeared. How many other people disappeared? Why is this the one that gets the media scrutiny and the media attention? Because I don't know how many, I don't know the statistics about how many women people go missing every single day. We even, as part of the media, are sitting here talking about this one. This is something we picked up from the other news outlets. But I have my theories on why this is the one that's in the forefront and that's getting the attention. But
checks the boxes. Pretty missing white girl. She's a school teacher. She's from they're in a very nice area. She's attractive. You know what I mean? It checks a lot of boxes.
Yep.
So you asked me this last time we talked.
Yeah.
There's I don't know. I don't know. But when I look at it, at the core of it, it's an interesting story. Something's wrong. Something's wrong.
Is it a foul play story, or is this woman who has mental health issues anyway? Did she wander off? Like, she must have been better because she was supposed to be back at school at her CPS educator, her school teacher job this past Monday. So we know that leave of absence was over, but you take a leave of absence for some sort of mental situation. I don't know. I'm interested to see what the sister's going to say about the relationship between the two of them. I'm interested to see will this woman be found. But most importantly, I would be remiss if I didn't put it out front and center that this is yet another story of a missing white woman that we're telling that has garnered national attention overnight. And how many other people who have missing loved ones that are forgotten and not talked about. God bless all of them, especially the ones who don't have bright lights, camera, action all over them.
For me, it's like, is this a murder mystery or is this a mental health crises, or both? I don't know, but let's keep on top. I'll keep on top of the story and circle back. I'm interested. I hope she's okay.
Yeah.
Certainly concerned, but I've seen this husband-wife scenario, before. So
Many times.
again, I'm not throwing him under the bus. Not saying he's a suspect. He knows they were looking at him. Of course he is. He's the husband and last person to see her life. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned. We're going to take a quick coffee break, and then we're going to come back with some breaking news on the story of the 31-year-old mother, Romika Meeks Blackman, that was gunned down in Chicago. Her killer just may or may not walk. So we've been following this case for a long time, since almost the day after it happened, because your connections with the Chicago PD, and there's been so many twists and turns, and we obviously still are getting more and more details. And we know that even more charges than the initial first degree one have come forward. Steph, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think she's going to walk. But I think the fact that they charged her with first degree murder in the murder of Romika, I think that they would, you've got to convince a jury that was the case. And I just don't think it's going to happen. I think that she's going to walk. She's currently behind bars. I know there's 5 new charges that they've brought. Look, if I'm looking at the paperwork, like, the defense is making a strong argument to let her out, which is, she's had a license to carry. She has no prior criminal history. She's pregnant. I guess probably the concern is, A, is she a flight risk, and B, could she be a target for other people? That's certainly an issue that's come up in Chicago a lot.
Yeah.
I've talked to my sources there, and they've literally had witnesses gunned down, threatened. So, but you can't keep somebody behind bars because you're concerned for their safety. So I think she was overcharged. I think they're going to have a hard time with that. I think it's a tragic story all around. And this is really up your alley. This is family dynamics. This is Blended in Black gone wrong. Like, this is way wrong. I see your interest in this.
When we think about, and when I say, because I agree with you on it being overcharged. Now, the public scrutiny, the public outcry, and just the visceral from people that believe that this was first-degree murder. It's one thing to believe and emotionally feel it was first-degree murder, but can the state prove beyond a reasonable doubt? I feel the state could have proven a lesser charge, because we know Holly was the shooter. The state could have shown intent. Not intent to kill her on that particular day, but if the state would have come with lower charges or lesser charges, I feel like it would have stuck. But I do wonder why they came with such a hard-hitting one. And that's something for us and our sources to discuss.
There's evidence that we aren't privy to. Obviously, it's an active case. It's an open trial. It's an active trial.
Right.
But on paper, to me, it looks like it's going to be a tough road for the prosecution.
First degree might be a tough sell, but if they would have just come with a lesser charge, and I know, but that's not what the public wanted. The public wanted her to be persecuted to the highest extent of the law. And so the public, we're getting what's been suggested. Do you think a manslaughter would have stuck and she would have served some mandatory time?
Yeah, I think it, like, manslaughter would have been.
So,
would have made more sense to me, on knowing what I know. Like, there's a lot of stuff I don't know, and there's a lot of stuff you don't know. There's a lot of stuff people know. They obviously made this decision, surprisingly to me, based on the evidence they had in the case that they're laying out. So let's see what happens. I mean, this case has become, this murder case has become a soap opera. It's turned into a reality show. And we peel back the layers. And, I always tell people, look, victims aren't perfect. Okay. And in this case, there was a lot of trauma. There was a lot of anger. There was a lot of frustration. And I think that that's going to come back to bite the state in the ass with the jury. There was a lot of contention between the women.
To make the victim look.
Right. You always make the victim, it's cleaning up the victim, which is what they say, and then obviously they're going to argue, we've seen the posts, we've seen the exchanges, we've seen the video, but they're going to argue what's admissible in court, what the jury's going to be allowed to hear. And then the hardest part is the judges can say to the jury, forget everything else you've heard, which is always a tough thing to me for a jury to, if you've seen like her calling her like an effing bitch or whatever, right? So let's let due process take its course. But look, I think I don't agree with what Holly did. I think it was wrong, but I also don't think first degree murder is the way to go on this.
Gosh, if they truly wanted a conviction, I mean, I just question like what was the methodology behind the state's decision, because no matter how you feel, if you feel it was first degree, again, what can the state prove beyond a reasonable doubt? Would they have had an easier time proving manslaughter? So that means that she get off on first degree and walks free and there's nothing? Or could the state have said, hey, we're going to charge with manslaughter and now we know we have a mandatory. She would have served some time in jail as opposed to possibly nothing if the attorney stirs up enough confusions and file the motions. And we talked about this attorney in detail. And we know she's one of those ones that has a propensity to do this. So,
and this is a big trending case. It's a trending story.
Yeah.
And for sure they're looking at, look, she had a legitimate legal license to carry, but they're going to look at this case as setting precedent. They're going to land somewhere where they make it not okay for, if you're angry at me, to pull out your gun, even though you're licensed to carry it, and shoot me in the face. That's where I think, that's why I'm surprised they overcharged. That's why I'm like, wait, they overcharged her. But let's see what happens. But this is a big case.
Yeah.
It will set precedent for, in a violent culture that we're in. I hope that people can walk away and be like, this is not the answer.
Yeah.
Shooting somebody in the face, shooting somebody shooting somebody in the face. We're back at that theme. Yeah. Guns and violence.
And on our other segments today, we talked about another person who was just shot yesterday.
It's exhausting.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Steph Watts,
welcome,
our
Naja.
Investigative journalist, for chiming in on this story. Welcome back to Naja News. Today we have some breaking news. Holly Quadasia Johnson has been denied bail. The next court hearing date is scheduled for February 3rd. Holly Quadasia Johnson will remain detained in state custody. So obviously this is a breaking news case, so details and facts are coming in pretty choppy. But we're going to go over why the judge decided to detain her, the evidence that the judge used in his decision to detain her, and what will be absolutely thrown out. This case has been alluring for so many reasons and has taken so many twists and turns. So let's get right into it. Today is January 7th. We know as of yesterday, Holly was supposed to stand before the judge. The judge had not had a chance to review all of the evidence, so he wanted to take the evening to come back today with a fresh start. So that's exactly what happened. It's been reported there was a bit of disrespect and some interruptions on the Zoom, so they are considering limiting the public from attending the February 3rd, which is the next hearing date, and those to follow. In my last video, I started my breakdown of the key players in this case, and one of them was Holly Quadasia Johnson's attorney, Ari Williams. Ari has a reputation of being the queen of technicalities, but my sources say that Ari just might be a little bit in over her head. And I know I've personally stated that I could not understand for the life of me why the state would give a first-degree murder charge, because typically the state isn't going to just callously throw out a charge that they don't know that they can beat. And today, the state had some tricks up their sleeve. So today's hearing was strictly about detention, pre-trial detention to be exact. It was not about guilt or innocence. Today, they didn't review any final evidence. So just to be clear, this ruling today was just about if she could get out before the trial begins. The answer was no. Essentially, this ruling was just based on risk and community safety standards. So this part is important. Here's some of the judge's key findings. The judge doesn't believe that there was a fist bump prior to the incident. Some people have claimed that there have been videos of Carlos and Quadasia Holly Johnson having a fist bump after Quadasia fired those fatal shots. The judge does not believe that's what happened. Unless he sees some sort of video proof, he's not taking any eyewitness statements. He's taking those. He's not believing those. The judge does believe that a headlock of some sort may have happened. Now, it's unclear if the judge believed it was an actual headlock or Carlos trying to restrain Romika. But we do know on the scene, Carlos and Romika got into some sort of tussle. So the judge is taking into account and believing that there was some sort of physical altercation between Carlos and Romika, and it was not a casual or friendly one. The judge does believe that Carlos slammed or pushed the car door onto Romika, and a few months ago, I actually talked to a witness that said that the very thing happened. They saw Carlos trying to shove her back in her vehicle. In my previous video, I mentioned that Ari was going to play the technicality that the key witness of the states had on headphones with noise-canceling headphones. So how on earth could you possibly hear what was going on? Were you distracted? Well, guess what? The headphones stay. The judge is seeing this witness as credible, and this is detrimental to the defense's case. Their smoking gun, the person that they were going to accuse of being an outright liar, is being listened to and considered by the state and the judge strictly for the case of detention. Remember, this is not trial, guilt, or innocence. This is just if Holly's going to stay in jail and she's still there. She will not be getting out as of right now. And this doesn't necessarily mean that the judge believes this particular witness fully. However, the judge finds this witness credible. So what this means is that this witness will get to testify before a jury, and the jury will get to determine their credibility. What the defense hoped, is that this witness will be knocked out completely because their testimony is the main one that paints Holly as the aggressor, and also Carlos. The state now sees Carlos as a biased witness, meaning his credibility is probably going to be shot with the state. And when things like this happen, either his testimony is completely thrown out or a lot of it is squashed. So him being one of the two surviving people that was there on the scene probably won't get to tell everything that he saw from his own perspective. And to be quite frank, it's in the advantage of the state to exclude one of the people that was there. Now, obviously, he has an interest in seeing his living child's mother out of jail. But according to his social media, he still very much loves and misses his deceased child's mother. On a recent post, he declared his love, and he's been pretty consistent in expressing lamentations that he wishes that this just did not happen that day. One viewer even pointed out that they've not seen him necessarily go really, really hard for his living child's mother. And as of yesterday's court case, we know he wasn't even really in the courtroom. He wasn't allowed in the proceedings. So we don't know if Holly said, you know what, I saw that post, you're talking about you, love Romika, I don't want you here. Or he might be under consideration for something else by the state and they didn't want him in there. I'm going to get to more of that a little bit later. So here's what the judge is not going to consider. He's not going to consider any of Romika's alleged threats. The videos, the screenshots that we've seen when she was not necessarily in the best mood, she was angry, she was aggressive, she was even being violent. That's not going to be considered here. Not for today anyway. However, Holly did make a post a while ago saying, and I don't remember what it said, sometimes you just got to shoot a MF or you got to kill a MF. That's going to be considered, and it's probably going to be one of the more damning things that will go against Holly. And obviously, because Holly made that post months before she killed Romika, it can't be used as a confession, but it does show her state of mind. In Ari's 19-page submission, when she was pleading for Holly to get out of jail, at least send her away with an ankle monitor, there were some questionable facts in there, and now some of them have already been refuted. And so again, this doesn't mean that everything was false or inadmissible, but it does show that the state has some holes in Ari's case, which is one of Ari's tactics. You know, in a smart court case, when it's time for battle, the one thing you're going to do is study your opponent and how they move so that you can prepare yourself and ready yourself for the stones that you know that they're going to throw. And it sounds like the state was prepared. And I'll say this, detention hearings are usually always this conservative because they don't want to let anything fly. And experienced judges normally err on the side of caution, which is why some of these things are being considered and some are just not. And you all know our investigative journalist, Steph Watts. I mean, very early on, he said that he thought Carlos might have had a little bit more to do with what happened that day than what we knew so far. And some sources even say that Carlos might be facing indictment somewhere down the line. We don't know for what at all, but those are the whisperings from some pretty credible sources. And let me be clear, no indictments against Carlos have occurred. No paperwork has been filed. And there's absolutely no confirmation of this. Again, those are just whispers and ramblings, which we do talk about on this channel. So let's look at the big picture. What does all of this mean? So the judge is signaling caution, not conviction. Some people see today as a victory because it might determine how the rest of the case is going to go. Some people see it as a setback, a roadblock, and saying, all right, Ari might need to go back and do her homework or bring on some more help in defending Holly Quadeja Johnson. What we do know is a court is preserving the witness credibility for the trial. The witnesses will be heard before the jury. The court is accepting some physical elements of this, meaning no, there probably wasn't a fist bump. Yes, Carlos did try to shove Romika back into the car, but the judge did not determine if he was trying to restrain her or if he was being physically aggressive toward her in that moment. That will be for the jury to decide. The state has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Holly had intent to take her life, and it's looking like, as of today's ruling, that that's exactly what they're about to make happen. And again, as I've stated so many times, there's absolutely no way of knowing exactly what's going to happen. Will another witness appear? Obviously, everything has not been shown in discovery. We don't even know the half of it. And again, today was just about pre-trial detention, which Holly will stay locked up until February 3rd. But the trials are about the proof and the evidence. And as of today, this case is headed to court. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Naja News. I'm your host, Naja Hall. Special shout out to my investigative journalist, Steph Watts, for joining us once again. I'm really interested to hear what you think about all of our stories today. Our channel is growing pretty quickly, but I pride myself on hopping in the comments for a few hours after every upload. We typically upload every Wednesday, sometimes more, but always on Wednesdays. So if there's a story that you want to see us cover or something that we might have left unsaid, I want to see what you think down in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell, and I'll see you next time on Naja News.